This video is all about the cooking power-up main skill. There are 3 Pokemon in total that have this main skill, and overall it is a pretty strong one. In this video we'll cover each of these Pokemon, as well as having a discussion on the cooking pot size in general, and how that impacts your overall team composition and strategy. It can have a particularly strong impact on the Sunday, as well as the preparation for new events and so on, where you can gain a lot of pot size and bring with you into the next week. The other thing I wanted to mention here is that if you're new to the channel, I do a lot of these type of videos. I have a series of playlists which you can find in the video description, and I overall try to make videos from people who are beginners to advanced and everything in between, and so consider subscribing if you like the content. When it comes to the cooking power-up Pokemon, there are 2 evolutions, and then we have Magnezone. These are the only Pokemon with this main skill as of now, but I do suspect that there will be more Pokemon with this main skill in the future. The reason why it is so strong is because there is a pretty significant limit on the pot size just throughout the game, and the cost of powering up your pot is quite high in terms of dream shards. For example, if you want to have the final level up for the cooking pot as of right now, or rank 55 is the max, it is 127,000 dream shards. So having at least one of these cooking power up Pokemon is going to be incredibly powerful, and particularly when you want to make these big dishes such as the macarons and the ninja salads and the like. So the way this main skill scales is at level 1 you get 7 increased pot size per trigger, and that stacks. So if you have 4 triggers before you make a dish, then you'll have 4 times 7 extra pot size, so 28. That's a lot, and that's at level 1. At level 6 it is 27. For most of these Pokemon, they have a pretty good skill rate. So if you're actively playing throughout the day, you will likely pop the Pokemon 2 to 5 times as just a general thing. And so for the most part, if you have a skill specialist of this type that has at least level 3 to 5, you will be having a lot of extra inventory. The other way to get extra inventory obviously is through the good camp ticket, but even with a good camp ticket, if you have a fairly ingredients focused team or want to do some of these event preparations where, let's say on the Sunday, the day before, you have 2 of these Pokemon just running and you just don't cook at all, then you can start Monday with the cooking pot just maxed out. The boosts from this main skill, I can mention, is a maximum of 200. That may be changed in the future, but as of now it is 200. So at any given time, you can stack up 200 in cooking pot size that you can bring into the next week, or that you can potentially save up from like Friday night. You skip meals on Saturday, and then you have that insane breakfast on Sunday. The reason why Sunday is an important one is because you have an increased chance of a critical meal, extra tasty. And so at a base rate that is 20% increased, so it's quite likely to happen, at least during one of those meals. And also the value of the extra tasty on the Sunday when you cook is 3 times instead of 2 times. And then on top, you have the end of week bonus pot size, which doubles the size. And so if you have the good camp ticket running, you have a cooking pot up Pokemon, that's a separate bonus. So aside from the end of week bonus and aside from the good camp ticket and the base volume of your pot, you can also stack the additional 200 from the cooking power up S. And if you've been around on the channel here for a while, you will see that I've had some insane meals where I have like 420 or 19, something like that, 420 LOL, ingredients in the pot size, and it's just huge. And then if you are lucky with the incredible extra tasty on a huge meal like that, you can quickly end up getting 3, 4, 500,000 Snorlax strength just from that single dish. And overall, in my opinion, possibly for some of those important end of week, just like bonuses on the Sunday, it can be worthwhile to run a team of 2 cooking power-up Pokemon and 2 Dedenne to just stack all those odds in your favor. So more strategy videos will come on that in the future, just as I cover more cooking related content and also the Dedenne. So I'm thinking we should have a look at these Pokemon now and compare them a little bit, because there are only 3 Pokemon. I haven't really looked too far into the Magnemite in terms of where you can find it. If I'm not mistaken, it's mostly just on the green grass isle. So it's a bit of a starter Pokemon in a way. Yeah, currently just on the green grass isle. I do suspect that in the future, when we get new areas, that Magnemite will potentially be a Pokemon that is more easy to find. At Greengrass, it is available from Basic 1, Basic 5, and Ultra 1, and overall shouldn't be too difficult a Pokemon to get your hands on. And then, of course, we have the evolutions. We can bring back the Flareon. The interesting thing overall is, I would say, as a skill specialist, the cooking power-up main skill is one of the best. However, because 2 of these Pokemon are evolutions, I think the best Eevee that you'll find on your whole hunt is best served as a Vaporeon. Potentially Espeon too, but particularly I think the Vaporeon will gain more favor over time, as potentially there could be some combo potential there with a Suicune. And just in general, as a very strong ingredient, magnet, skill-focused Pokemon that can yield all sorts of ingredients and potentially also a decent chunk of tails. So in my opinion, it is favored to just look for a lot of Eevee, like maybe 50 of them, and then decide on which evolutions you want to go for. And to an extent, it can even be worthwhile to decide against certain evolutions just to save the overall volume of candy for those few that you settle on. So in my opinion, at least early game to mid game, 1 or 2 evolutions at most, and just funnel the candies into those. And Eevee can be found in most areas. I won't cover that. So for the most part, the thing to consider here is Flareon overall is a little bit inferior to the Glaceon in terms of the main skill. The reason here is you can see there is over a whole percentage point difference in the skill rate. Flareon is faster, but overall it's not fast enough to where this is anywhere near. So it's fairly close, but for the most part, I would say Glaceon is possibly the better choice between these 2. The thing too about the Flareon and the Glaceon are their berries. Flareon has the Lepa berry, which is favored at Taupe Hollow, and Glaceon has the favored berry, which is favored at Snowdrop. What could be interesting is if you go on that long hunt for the perfect Vaporeon, if you happen to find a berry finding skill trigger combo on the Eevee, then potentially either one of these could work just fine. So we're going to use Flareon as an example for the evolutions here, and then we'll cover Magnezone in a bit. Let's see, we got Flareon. So if you on your hunt for the Eevees can find a berry finding and a skill trigger either M or S, if it is S, it would be nice if it doesn't have the skill trigger M coming in late like this to where you can't sub-skill seed it. And for the most part, is it the careful nature? Yeah, let's just put that one. For the most part, I think something like this should be perfectly tolerable. The other thing to look for that could be an interesting one, it just depends on overall how much you will use these, is the skill level up M. For me personally, I don't mind this combo too much. It's quite strong. It's not the best. Obviously, you lose out on quite a bit of the berry value. But for the most part, when I'm using these Pokemon, I am trying to not have a general boost throughout the week, because if you're running good camp ticket as well, you'll likely run out of ingredients. And if you run out of ingredients, then you'll run less berry Pokemon, and it's a little bit awkward at times. So for the most part, in my view, you just want to maximize just a particular day or period of the week. So for example, most of the days will have the or most of the weeks rather, will have the weekly missions to where you're asked to cook 17 times. If you do that perfectly, then what you could do with the 21 potential meals in the week, you could cut back on 4 of them. So the whole Saturday and dinner on the Friday, which means if you cook every single dish that you want to cook during a week, then you can essentially switch on the Friday right after lunch. So you don't cook the Friday dinner, none on Saturday. And at that point, you have a huge window open to where you can run Cooking PowerUp and you can run the Dedenne for the extra tasty chance. And then by the time you hit 200 cap on the pot size, you can run more Dedenne and get that Dedenne extra tasty up to 70%. And that stacks with the Sunday bonus, if I'm not mistaken. So you have like a 90% chance of just hitting it huge on the Sunday breakfast. And if you don't hit the extra tasty on the breakfast, then you still probably have a lot of ingredients. And if you cook a really early breakfast on the Sunday, then you can cook a late lunch and just keep running the Flareons and the Glaceons if you have 2 of these at some point, and just have some insane meals. For me personally, that will be a big strategy going into the Entei event and the Suicune event and other important weeks. And so you'll see more of that in my daily videos. So we've covered the Flareon a little bit here. The berry value is nice, and particularly with the lower ingredient rate. So if you are, for example, to find the berry finding here, skill trigger M, potentially another skill trigger S here, I think that would overall be better than the helping speed M. But yeah, you have a lot of options here, particularly with Eevee having so many evolutions, many of which are quite useful. It really justifies that long hunt. And at friendship level 10, you get 1 guaranteed gold skill in this first spot. And then at friendship level 40, which a lot of you will hit, you will find another guaranteed gold skill in the second slot. So you'll have a 1 in 7 chance here of getting what you want, and another 1 in 7 chance here. And then the combo would be like 1 in, 50 or something. But then there are 2 positions for these, so I'm not too sure on the math there. Not interested either to really cover that. So what I'm thinking we could do now is to pop back into the comparison here, because for the most part, in terms of raw skill, the Glaceon is it. And so you have a higher skill rate. It's not too much slower. If we go back here, actually, we can just quickly go over Glaceon. Glaceon, I would say, if you find the berry finding and the skill trigger M, I think potentially the helping speed M here is going to make a big difference, just because 53 is somewhat slow, and the helping speed M here is going to quite help you out with the speed portion of it. So I think overall the Flareon and the Glaceon are opposites, where you kind of want the skill trigger S on the Flareon more so than the helping speed, but it varies a little bit. So you have a lot of options in terms of that slot at least. And then I would say it could be interesting with the skill level up M in the first spot too for both of these, just because the main skill level only gets 1 additional level if you evolve Eevee into the Glaceon, so you're level 2. Level 2 is a bit weak overall, It is 10 extra ingredients, and if you have the main skill level up M here, in combo with a good nature that has the main skill chance up. If it has main skill chance down, don't look twice, bin it, it won't work. Maybe if everything else here is perfect, you can consider the Umbreon, but for the most part, you want a main skill chance up nature, and then the down doesn't really matter too much. And then consider either the berry finding because of that favored berry at Snowdrop, or the skill level up M to where you go 1 in Eevee, 2 at Glaceon, and then 4 from the sub skill. And if you add 2 more seeds into it, you have a really strong cooking Pokemon. If we then head back into the comparison here, we can switch out the 1 Glaceon here for the Magnezone. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. Personally, I favor Magnezone above Glaceon. And the reason is Magnezone is a single species evolution line that has one job. And you are going to get a decent chunk of candy. Magnezone is somewhat rare currently due to the area that it's found in. Not too many late game players are hanging out at Greengrass. And typically when you are hanging out at Greengrass, it's going to be because of an event. And so to an extent, the Magnezone is a little bit tricky to get a hold of. And you do really have to hunt for it. But if you can somehow find a Magnezone that is pretty strong in terms of the sub skills, then in my opinion, it's going to be better than the Glaceon, because you can save those candies for Vaporeon, Espeon, and other just really strong evolutions. And with the berry, you probably will want a stronger skill specialist, then focus on the berry value, so that you can put the skill specialist on the field, let it do its job, take it off, and replace it with a berry Pokemon. So in my view, it is a much better Pokemon to just go for the Magnezone. And then I personally wouldn't mind something like this on the Magnezone, because it is going to evolve twice from the Magnemite into the Magnezone, so you'll be at level 3. And then if you find a really strong Magnezone overall, it is worth the main skill seeds. You should cover the Gardevoir first, but after that, it's kind of up to you where you want to go with your strategies. And for me personally, possibly Vaporeon for the ingredient magnet up. But second to that is the cooking up, because you have those Sunday stacks that can just get incredibly strong, and particularly on the good sleep day events where they fall, where you get either a 1.5 or a 2x multiplier on the Sunday, these Pokemon make a big difference, because you want to maximize the Sunday and not just even out the low Monday and the high Sundays. But you can really go for it. So if you can find a Magnezone with the skill triggers in the first 2 slots and potentially a helping speed, it is somewhat slow, but this skill rate really makes up for it, then I think you're going to be really happy with that choice overall. So I think for the most part, it is a bit of a tricky hunt, because on the Eevee, on the one side, you want to either go for the Vaporeon or the Espeon and some of these other more useful Pokemon. But overall, I would say just because of how strong this main skill is, I would put Glaceon in A tier, and possibly Flareon too, just because they can really play their roles at their respective islands. Magnezone is more like an everything Pokemon. You can put it wherever you want. And the day where Blueberry, the Steel-type berry, gets favored, oh man, is Magnezone gonna be an S-tier Pokemon. So for the long-term hunt and the main skill seeds, I would say go for the Magnezone. In the short term, if you do have some extra just Eevees to consider, then potentially just going for the Flareon and the Glaceon and capping them at level 25. Let's say you find this setup that we talked about earlier, where you have the skill level up M because you're on a long hunt for the evolutions. and you get something like this, then even just running a Flareon and a Glaceon with this setup side by side, where you have two of them, it's going to be pretty powerful. You lose out on a little bit of optimization because you could potentially just run one of these at level 6 main skill, but if you have two at level 4, then you lose a bit of the berry value, but you can hit that max of 200 sooner and then switch into your other ingredient and berry Pokemon. So it's a little bit like the Dene in that regard, where it's super expensive to boost the Dene from main skill level 1 to 6, where the difference is 4% to 10%. Meanwhile, you can just run 4 Dene, and in total that would be 16%. So it's very tricky with some of these skill specialists, where to an extent you can cap them at level 25 and they do their job just fine. So I would say potentially that Nirtheart is a good consideration here, because that feedback in the discussion on the various Pokemon and the Pokemon that you find in comparison to your whole collection is quite useful. So having a community to just share screenshots of your best finds and discuss that is a big help. So consider checking out the Nirtheart Discord in the video description. It is for YouTube members of the channel, but overall a very great place to be. So hope you found this video helpful. This part is a bit tricky to discuss just because it is such a complicated set of steps that you have to do with the timing, the hunt for these Pokemon, the trade-offs where evolutions are kind of tricky to figure out. There are so many of them, they're limited candy. So let me know in the comments if you have a feedback, any thoughts. I'll get back to you. Let's see if we can do the thumbs up today as well. We can. It's been pretty consistent recently, haven't it?